What did your parents teach you that you would never teach your children? I would never compare my kids to other kids. Not only did it make me feel shitty back then, it's made me unnecessarily competitive now, and I seem to compare every little thing of mine with other people's, never allowing me to tell my side of the story. When I was getting in trouble, most of the time it was my fault or something I could have done about it. But there were times that there was an honest explanation that would have explained the situation. And it was always talking back. Just give me a freaking second. Never say a word if someone hurts you. Never object. Never protest, and if you cry, that is your weakness coming through. Don't cry. If you speak out when you are attacked, you will be attacked twice as hard. Silence is the only way through to safety. Say nothing, no matter what. This advice really fucked me over. My parents taught me not to share my feelings. It has taken me a long time to be able to do this. I don't want my kids hiding their feelings. Guilt trips. All the damn guilt trips. Got one today from my mother actually. Yura. That crying to them will make things worse, not better. That anxiety and depression are not real health problems. That you have to give granny, grandpa, uncle pervert a kiss goodbye. No. No, you fucking don't. It's your body. You get to decide who you hug, kiss, etc. You're not allowed to be rude, so you have to say hello, goodbye. But you don't have to hug or kiss anyone you don't want to. Not even granny. Not even if she really wants a kiss, and she'll be disappointed if you don't kiss her. Your father is always right. Even if he is wrong, you must still obey him, because he is your father. That the only acceptable careers in the world are lawyer, doctor, and engineer, ___. The most important thing I'll teach my children is to be good. But don't be nice. I've been a doormat my whole life just because nobody ever taught me the difference between being the decent person and a doormat. I'm 30 plus and I'm still working on this part of my personality. I don't want my children to go through this. Ever. To be ashamed when I make a mistake. Ultra-conservative religious mother, she's gotten better. Thankfully. Nothing more crippling and counterproductive than shame and self-loathing. To be afraid of money. I spent so much of my childhood walking on eggshells because of my mom's constant anxiety over money. If I ever asked for anything, she'd look at me like I was about to put her into financial ruin. If a boy is mean to you, he likes you. Worst lesson ever. Bad financial habits, which I've broken, thankfully. My parents were unconditionally supportive. Everything I did was the best and perfect, and I was a genius. I will be giving my daughter constructive criticism, because that is how we get better at things. My mother taught me that yelling, screaming, and throwing tantrums on your children is good parenting. Insults aren't insults if they come from your family. Grades are everything. Yeah, never teaching my kids that, if I have any, to be overly critical of my own body. My mom is otherwise wonderful but very insecure about her weight. She's not overweight at all. I often got comments like, "Those jeans look cute but don't gain 5 pounds," and lectures about how I can't go out around other people without makeup because what will people think? But it's unfortunate because she genuinely believes people are judging her that much. She apologizes every time we video chat if she hasn't put on makeup yet. I loved catching bugs when I was a kid. My father told me that dragonflies use their tails to sew people's lips and eyes shut. My kids don't need to learn that. My dad is a pretty great guy, but he always taught us to only vote conservative. That certainly wasn't a great way to foster much meaningful thought about politics. Instead of telling them to get a real job that makes actual money, allow them to follow their talents and passion in the first place. Whatever it may be. I also wouldn't want to judge them on their looks. When my beard grew out for the first time, it almost felt like I was being harassed to shave it off. So I ended up doing it for the longest time. Then when my mom got a haircut, she expected me to say it looks nice, which felt super frustrating. My parents taught me that Jesus was the Son of God and that I had to follow his rules, otherwise he would send me to an eternity of endless torture. That you have to be hated because of your dad's surname. That you belong to dad's filthy breed. That you're a slave to the whole family and world because you're a woman. And that you must pay with the consequence of not being liked by them by suffering and being their own object. You can like what you like and not feel embarrassed by it. To this day I still feel like I'm doing something wrong for liking certain things. I'm not hurting anyone or myself. My whole family would never look at me the same way again if they knew what I really liked. I never want my kids to have that level of fear around me for just enjoying what they enjoy. Tough kids don't cry. It didn't give me any really bad issues or anything. But I grew up hearing that my whole life. And it wasn't from my mom. It was from my grandparents who helped raise me, but it has made me really awkward with emotions. In general, I don't like displaying negative emotions in public. If you've seen me cry, you are very close to me. We'll put it that way. Obey your elders. My mother repeatedly tried to drill it into me to blindly follow whatever my elders told me, and not to question it. They were the boss and children should sit down and shut up. She was big on the children should be seen and not heard bullshit. 2. It caused a lot of resentment and arguments between us. We've butted heads my whole life. I will never ever teach a child any of that absolute horseshit. My father always said that you should do something perfectly or don't start at all. Terrible advice, since now I'm a real perfectionist that awaits perfect conditions. Give it your best but always try would have been way better advice. That the devil will literally come up out of the ground and get them if they tell lies. Also that one day in the end times, someone will rip off their fingernails and toenails while telling them to deny Christ. But they will have to refuse even under pain of death to get into heaven. Southern Baptists are on some hardcore shit. Rich people are rich because they are smarter and all work harder. Stress on them conventional Asian beauty standards. My dad would go livid if I cut my hair short. He always said growing up that girls with short hair are ugly and that long hair is prettier. I dyed my hair for the first time earlier this year a brown color as opposed to my natural black strands. It wasn't anything considered crazy. Yet he was still mad. Also, they absolutely couldn't understand why I would from time to time use self-tanner lotion when I already had whitish skin. That when a parent beats up his kid, it hurts the parent more than it hurts the kid. That beating up a kid is acceptable discipline. Just because you, the parent, has it bad as a kid, doesn't mean that your children's problems aren't big either. My mother always told me I had no reason to be depressed, and that her life was so much worse when she was a kid. She then proceeded to ignore my depression, something I felt with my entire teenage life. That if you try hard enough, you will succeed. Tell that to the Confederacy, Mom. Never talk back to adults. They know better. Respect them. I will always be willing to listen to my child. Knowledge evolves with time. I might not know a lot of things that my kid might. My mom taught me that I shouldn't stand up to bullies but walk by them, with my head held high. That was at the beginning of 7th grade. By the end of the year she had to threaten legal action against the school because of all the mental breakdowns I was having. They used to tell me that everything I was doing was wrong. And when I'd apologize, they'd yell at me for being weak. Also, I wasn't allowed to cry at all. I was taught that crying anywhere just was annoying and made you a nuisance. I still am damaged from thinking all my life that if I cried everyone would hate me forever. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather taught me how to take care of game fowl, fighting roosters. I knew how to spar them when I was a tween and did lots and lots of care for them until I moved away at 18. You can say what you will about rooster fighting itself, and I probably won't disagree. Although my grandparents are good people, I would never take my kid to a rooster fight or anything like that. In fact, I never liked the damn birds as a kid. That you are gonna be fat when you grow up. The rest of my family is on the heavier side. Cause of this, and many other things, I naturally ended up with an eating disorder that put me in hospital for months. You really have to be careful with what you say to your kids. That what will people say when you make X decision? This has prevented me from doing a lot of things in life for myself. If you have Asian parents, you will understand this is a big deal because they want their kids to look good to others in the community, so a lot of our decision-making even as adults come at their expense of what will some random person think of me if I do this. They used to tell me that everything I was doing was wrong, and when I'd apologize, they'd yell at me for being weak. Also, I wasn't allowed to cry at all. I was taught that crying anywhere just was annoying and made you a nuisance. I still am damaged from thinking all my life that if I cried everyone would hate me forever. Don't argue. Arguing only brings problems. I'll make sure to stay clear of that. I don't want my kids to have doormat issues like I do. That they're too sensitive and need to learn to take a joke. I probably was because of insecurity and stuff, but it messes up a kid's ability to stand up for themselves. I spent all of my childhood being too afraid of overreacting to stand up for myself. Also, there is never a time that someone needs to learn how to be okay with a deprecating joke on their behalf that makes them uncomfortable. Shaming me for being overweight but failing to teach me good eating habits. A lot of the females in my family have a terrible relationship with food, and that is exactly how I was brought up. My parents would always comment on my weight whenever I started gaining. It took me 26 years to finally have a healthy relationship with food. I basically had to educate myself. You have to hug and kiss your creepy Uncle Jeff. He's family. That they can't be trusted. I was never allowed to just go hang out with other kids. An adult had to be around. Not just around, but had to talk to my parent first. There wasn't always formal plans and no cell phones, so it was hard to make plans on the fly. I lied to my parents a lot about where I was going and what I was doing. That if they're in a bad situation, their safety is number one before punishment. When I was younger, I hid everything from them because I knew I would get yelled at, which led to so many bad things happening to me. If my kid ever called me saying that they got drunk at a friend's house and needed to be picked up, I would focus on making sure they are safe before ever mentioning any sort of punishment. Just leave it for the workers to do it. Seriously. It's not that hard to throw the food you ate to the nearest trash can. My mom taught us that people who think differently than her were evil, bad people. Funny thing is, she claimed to be against bigotry. Playing piano, I guess. I never really wanted to, but they sent me anyway when I was 7. I couldn't resist them and couldn't say I was more into electronic guitar. So I'll definitely force my child to play electro guitar because I always wanted to play that. If they argue back, I'll make them shut up because I'm old, therefore I know the best. Save yourself for marriage, yeah. Because I want my kids to grow into adults with horrible sex lives until 6 months after their first divorce. fucking ridiculous. That I should never have a relationship with a POC. Horrible outdated ideology. My 2 boys could bring back a black, homosexual, transgender, and I honestly wouldn't care as long as they are happy. I apologize if I said anything rude or hurtful. I always get paranoid about saying something wrong in situations like this. That crying won't make you feel better. Whenever I cried from stress, my dad would just go up to me and yell at me, saying that crying wouldn't pay the loans for the house. Also found out he was racist, sexist, and possibly homophobic. I'm a closeted bigender, pansexual, untreated, and spoiled my brother to no end. He has 3 iPhones, 2 iPads, and a laptop. So guess I never really liked my dad, to be honest. /edit. Forgot that he always fat-shamed me. One of them attempted to state that their deity was definitely real, kind, needed to be feared, etc. Indoctrination is fucking evil. To ignore someone who's being mean to you, or turn the other cheek as they put it. I wish I had learned to stick up for myself. My husband was taught the opposite. It's okay to hit someone if they threw the first punch. I would like to teach my children somewhere in between that they are not allowed to ever be upset because I had it worse. Just because someone had a worse experience than you doesn't mean your problems are now invalid. That the reason hobbits have hairy feet is because they never wear shoes. I went on to tell people for years that if they didn't wear shoes they'd get hairy feet, face with rolling eyes. Oh, and that therapy is only for people with problems. As an adult, I actually convinced my parents that their outlook on therapy wasn't healthy. Not taught, but told. My mother has a rather short temper, and once after a freakout, she said that I'd understand when I'm a parent and I'm having one of those moments. 2 things. 1. I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids. 2. I sincerely hope I can find better ways to channel stress and anger than taking it out on my children. I'm just here to get parenting tips, don't mind me. Thinking face. Making jokes that take jigs at people or roast them. I always thought it was mean as a kid, but find myself doing it in real life. Something I need to work on if I don't want to pass it on to my kids too. I was taught that I was a failure and will never get a job if I got less than 100% on any exam. I don't think children should be subjected to that kind of pressure. The family line will end with me though, so no more children will have to suffer. Enjoy high school, it's the best part of your life. Quote. Only African or island people will relate to this. But that feeling of disappointment when you go in the freezer to get some ice cream, you open their carton and it's full of habanero pepper, piments, hot pepper, or cassava leaves, tears of joy. The silent treatment. Every time my mom didn't like something I did as a child, she would ignore me and pretend I didn't exist. It would get to the point that I would be on my knees, begging for forgiveness. I would justify and always say, at least she never hit me. It didn't work out so well once I got older and started to have emotionally abusive boyfriends. I never realized that my mother's actions were emotional abusive until I was in college learning about childhood development. That I wasn't allowed to be angry. So I would try to not be angry. And then it would get expressed in unhealthy ways. I'm 47 fucking years old and just learning how to express anger in a healthy way. That white people and black people shouldn't have kids together. My mom is pretty racist. If my kids do say something wrong in public, I wouldn't ever scold at them or shame them in front of everyone to prove that I'm a good, responsible parent. If they need to be punished, it would be later on so they don't live with the constant feeling of humiliation that affects their social skills. Thanks, Op. That was an excellent question. I enjoyed reading the comments and know about what parents generally do to their kids, which is just sad. How to use a chainsaw. Both of my kids are special needs with no sense of balance. So, there's no way that doesn't end very badly. You will never be happy, find someone to love you, be successful, etc. if you don't stop doing XYZ. Great thing to tell a depressed, bullied, socially anxious, self-harming child who still struggles with intense shame spirals and emotional self-flagellation into their 30s. Thanks for watching. If you like, please subscribe.